Well, hello there. I hope you are doing well today. Welcome to Jane Hogan Health. So I am Jane Hogan. I am the wellness engineer. So I developed crippling rheumatoid arthritis in 2016, and I figured out how to heal myself using food and lifestyle, left a 30-year engineering career to become a functional medicine health coach. So that's what I do now. And this program is all about, so it's called Wellness by Design, and it's all about helping people achieve wellness by instead of reacting to the world around them, they design a life that gives them optimal health. So in the show, we explore like science and other methodologies that help people achieve optimal health. So my guest today, I'm really excited about, is Robert Glazer. So Bob, I'll just tell you a little bit about Bob. So Bob is, I know, the author of a book called Elevate. He is also the CEO of Acceleration Partners, a global partner marketing agency, and the recipient of numerous industry and company culture awards, including Glassdoor's Employees' Choice Awards 2 years in a row. He is the author of the inspirational newsletter, The Friday Forward. He's the author of the Wall Street Journal and USA Today bestseller Elevate that I mentioned, and the international best-selling book, Performance. So, Bob, welcome to the show. I'm really excited to have you here. Just tell me a little bit about the kind of work that you do in the world.
Thanks, Jane. Sometimes it's confusing to people. There's sort of what we do and how we do it, which has become a second job. What we do, I run a company called Acceleration Partners. We are a global agency that helps develop affiliate and partner marketing programs for brands. It's a version of online marketing where the partners, take some of the risk, and then they're compensated if someone purchases that product or signs up for it, rather than by a click or a banner. So very simply, you could be an affiliate and say, hey, go buy Bob's book and join the Amazon affiliate program. And if you drive people to buy my book, get 5% of the book sale. So that goes on a lot across the internet. And we help build those programs for enterprise brands. So that's what we do. How we do it and the type of culture we've tried to build, and building a company by investing in people holistically, being one of the largest kind of all remote organizations for the last 10 years. I have a lot of passion and sort of culture and leadership and trying to grow a business by investing in people rather than growing your business and churning and burning people.
I love that. So you started your Friday Forward newsletter as a company newsletter, but
Yeah.
It goes all around the world now, right?
Yeah, I started when we were about 40 people. I had done some pretty intense leadership training, decided to redesign my morning. And one of the constant things that was shared was kind of read something positive, write, think. And but the reading positive stuff that we were given, some of these quote books, it was a little too rainbow and unicorny for me. So I decided I'd combine it. So in the morning I'd do some writing, but I would write something that I would want to read. I had some of these stories and I started sending it on Friday to our team. We were distributed. It had nothing to do with our company, but it was about getting better or a story or otherwise. And soon I found people were sharing it outside the company. And eventually I kind of opened it up and shared it with some CEOs. Someone wrote an article that it was the only newsletter they read every week in ink, and a couple thousand people signed up. And that sort of, I just opened it up. And yeah, I mean, when I open it up on Friday morning, I'll see people opening it in 60 countries around the world this week. And it's still sort of crazy to me.
That's amazing. But it goes to show that what you're giving is real value. It's real value to people. And I love, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, you mentioned there about your mornings, and I'm all about the mornings too, and winning the day by winning the morning.
Yeah.
Just starting the day off right. So tell me a little bit about your morning routine.
Yeah, for me, it's really this constant realignment to what did I say I want to do this quarter, this year? What does that mean this morning? If I can start 90 mornings off well in a quarter, if I can get the 3 things done for the day, if I can set some quiet time, before the sort of defensive stuff. So I organize my day around, and I did this before I read Dan Pink's book, which sort of really validated this, but I think most of us are cognitively best in the morning. And so that's my read, write, deliver time. I save meetings for the afternoon. I try to make sure that, before I go into that kind of meeting zone, that I did the 3 things I need to do that day. Like I've taken some time to think. It's just really starting the day on offense, because something unexpected is going to happen. And if you just run every day on defense, you'll never get anywhere. It's a hamster wheel.
I agree. And I know I always come at things from a health perspective. And for me, overcoming an illness, doing that morning routine has made all the difference.
Yeah.
It really has on so many different levels. So I want to talk a little bit about your book now. I have a copy right here. Yeah. Elevate. Loved this book, Bob. It was so succinct and really pulled together a lot of the things, the concepts that I love, that I've read about in all kinds of different personal development books. But it's just like so nice and tight in your book. I really like it. So you talk about building capacity in this. So tell us about your 4 areas of capacity.
Yeah, I would say, spoiler alert, there's nothing new in Elevate, but I have always found that I can act on something once I have a framework that's digestible. And I think this framework was what I realized consistently I was seeing across all aspects of high performance and self-improvement, and really how you could see you were out of whack. So the 4 elements are spiritual, intellectual, physical, and emotional. I think they go in that order. Spiritual is not religious. I just couldn't come up with a better word, and I tried 100 of them and tested them on people. But it is about really what you want most in your core values. Do you have clarity around your core values, your purpose, what you want most? That's the North Star for everything that we're doing. Intellectual is sort of how you learn, plan, execute with discipline, have accountability. I consider that your sort of personal operating system. Like, how do you get better, faster, smarter, use less energy, ideally in service of what you've identified you want most? Physical then is, this is sort of our vehicle carrying us through how we manage our health, our well-being, and our level of resilience and competitiveness. And then emotional is our relationships to other people and things that we do not control. So the first 3 are really within us. I would say the 4th one's when we take our car out on the road with other cars and see how we play nicely with others. And do we drive better in traffic, or do we, crash our car at the sign of any traffic? So I think of them as sort of a ball, and I think all high achievers really are strong in these areas. They're aligned from the top down. There's a lot of people doing a great job on the last 3, haven't figured out what their core values, what they actually want. So they're executing on something that's actually not going to really well, and something that's probably not going to make them happy, which then drives stress and not fulfillment. And, the more you're growing these things in tandem, that ball has momentum and it really rolls. And I think a lot of times for people, it's to take a closer look at which ones, if it's wobbling, which is the one that's really, out of whack for you.
Mm-hmm. So that order, starting with the spirituality, was that you believe that's critical?
I think yes. I think it's really important, because I think it's like a first principles thing. First, you got to be clear about what you want. A lot of intellectual capacity is orienting around your goals and figuring out what you want and how to grow and learn to get there. The goals really should be long-term and should fulfill core values, so that when you achieve your goals, they feel fundamentally meaningful to you. I think if you're locked in on what you want, you really want to get it, suddenly your health and wellness is more important to you. And then also suddenly there are relationships and things that you're willing to, double down on and let go of, because you're really clear about what it is that you're trying to accomplish. So for most people, I'd argue it's probably the rare exception that someone has really low spiritual capacity and is doing a great job, because you're likely to kind of be like driving all over the place with blinders on. But I do think there's some people that probably from external pressure, societal pressure, peer pressure, maybe they have just become a world-class surgeon and done what they need to do that. But it is not at all. They want to be writing books in a cabin, right? It's just not at all what they want to do. So that's the rare thing where you would have like the downstream stuff kind of all sorted out, I think that's actually, you're just running really hard in the wrong direction. But a lot of that is an external pressure, and it's the word success versus achievement. A lot of people might say, oh, Jane's really, in your past career, Jane's really successful, right? But that was causing you, all kinds of problems. And that's externally people, oh, Jane was a really successful engineer. Like, achievement is when you attain the highest level of what you actually want. So I think that's the difference between success and achievement. And I think success can really stress us out. Achievement shouldn't, because again, my number one goal might be to get rid of everything in my life and get to that cabin in Montana and write books, and I'll be really, really happy.
Mm-hmm. And really, a lot of people are not doing that step
No.
of what is it I really want? What's important to me? What do I want to achieve in my life?
Here's how people know most of it. If you go to a party and you ask 100 people their core values, 98 will sputter something or say, I have no idea what they are. 2 will tell you what they are, their core purpose. And I promise you, those people are doing some pretty incredible stuff. I think people know their core values when they're violated. I use the analogy of you're driving a car through a tunnel. Your car will hit the wall, your nice Lamborghini, you'll scrape it all up and you'll bounce off the wall and then you'll hit the other side. Like, that's how we know. We know when we get into trouble with our core values, but we're already in trouble. And I always say, like, imagine if you could turn on the lights, paint the lines, like the car would go through the tunnel and it would stay away from the danger zones. It would stay away from the people and decisions and problems. So when you're able to actually have your core values on your desk, and you start with your decision making, like the big 3 to me, which is where you're going to live, what's your vocation, and who you're going to partner with. If you don't make those decisions based on core values, the failure rate is 90% in my experience.
Interesting. And it's when you talked about the Lamborghini scratching up against the wall. That's kind of what happened with me with illness. And I know with a lot of people, when something like that happens, you're scratching up against the wall.
Car's already dented. Yeah.
Like, okay, what really matters to me?
Right.
Obviously, we care about our health, but you don't really care about it until you find that you might be losing it. And then I always say, for me, it became like a compass.
Yeah.
It became a compass to help guide me in where I wanted to go.
Yeah, and what's interesting is I'm actually launching a course soon because it's the thing I get asked most about. We built a system that we train our leaders on discovering their core values over the last couple of years. And I just haven't seen anything in the outside world. I gave people an Elevate some tips and tricks to get started, but I've really built out the whole process, which will be out in a few weeks. So one of the interesting things, how you validate a core value is you create the inverse as sort of an archetype, right? So if you're someone who's just gratitude is part of your core value, and I say, okay, you're at a party, Jane, you're talking to this guy, Robert Glazer, and this guy is a trust fund baby, and he's complaining about everything, and also like, how do you feel? And you're like, I just, every fiber in my body has to get away from Robert, right? And because that person embodies the violation of your core value. So part of the way we test whether it's the right core value is if I create the inverse archetype, it should strike at you like to your core and almost like kryptonite.
That's excellent. I like that. For me, in the coaching program, I always start with, what's important to you. What is it you want to get out of this? Yeah. Because really, the core value is your why.
Exactly.
It's what
I'd argue. So I actually think the core. I think your why is your core purpose, and your core purpose. I see those as synonymous, and I think your core purpose tends to be the topic sentence for all of your values. Like, how do you wrap that up into a single thing? I think I actually think it's harder to identify sometimes your why or your purpose without the pillars. It's kind of like the umbrella without the pillars. So some of it is semantical, but I think a lot of people probably can discern some of their values before the why. The why kind of comes together, and you're like, wow, that's the overarching thing that I do. So like for me, my core purpose is to share ideas that help people and organizations grow. That just connects all the common dots of the things that I do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think coming up with that one sentence that can capture what you want to give the world.
It's not that easy though, right?
It's not that easy.
It is that important, but it is not that easy. I want to be clear. That was about a 2-year process. But if you start with the values, then it helps you do that.
Yeah. I like that idea that you've got a course coming up because, I don't think I've seen anything quite like that.
I have not, and I end up developing something when enough people ask me about. I'm not set up to do like one-to-one coaching. It's not sort of my world. So I try to do things that are repeatable. And we really built this out with our leadership team. We thought for each of our leaders, it was really important they understand their core values. And we've tested it, and it's really worked. And they've gone back to their team and they've articulated to their team, hey, this is what I value, and here's who I am. And their performance really goes up as a leader. So I'm making that available for the first time, and it should be out in a couple weeks.
Interesting. I'll look out for that. It must make a big difference in an organization too, when you've got people in the organization and they know what their core values are and what their why is. It might become pretty clear whether there's a mismatch there.
Yeah, I think there's a mismatch with the organization as a whole, which is okay, or with people on their team. And it may not be a mismatch, but it may be why they're having some issues. So we had someone go through our program, determined that self-awareness was really a core value of theirs. And it came out of, and it often does, like I am not a therapist, but it goes quickly to being very embarrassed by one of their parents who would always walk into the room and not read the room and be the loudest. And so as a leader, when anyone on their team showed a lack of self-awareness, they would overreact. And so they were actually able to go back to their team and articulate this and the importance of it to them and how it was going to manifest in their leadership and just have an honest discussion about that. But again, that clicked for them, like, wow, like I jumped all over Johnny because Johnny's just showed a lack of self-awareness sometime. And he doesn't know that that's like a trigger.
Yeah. A trigger. Yeah, interesting. So I found when I was reading your book, as I said, that I could really relate it to how when someone would approach recovering from an illness, when we're going to look at the whole person, because in functional medicine, of course, we don't look at
what's the root. We look
at the root cause, and we bring in the body, mind, spirit all together. And of course, that all comes together in your 4 areas of capacity too. And I really liked, well, first of all, it's a beautiful book. The pages are really nice, like a magazine.
You can finish it in a little over an hour too. You can feel accomplished. I usually have tons of nonfiction books next to my bed that are half read.
Yes. Beautiful pages, but I really love, because I'm so action oriented. I love the ends of the chapters where you've got, I'm just trying to find an example. You've got action steps, and you've got them broken down. Go that way. You've got them broken down to getting started action steps. So this is the first time someone's been thinking about taking a step here, and then the more advanced ones, which is great. I really loved it. So and a lot of the action steps, it's interesting, the action steps that you've got in there are very similar to action steps that I do with my clients and women in my wonderful Fine membership program as well. In fact, some of the words that you use are even the same themes that I use. So it's quite interesting. I just loved it. One quote from the book, I noticed that it's not about doing more. It's about doing more of the right things. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, my analogy here is like a computer processor, right? Which is like if we upgrade our knowledge, if we know what we want to do, and we upgrade our skill set, it should require less energy. It should be less stressful. So one example that I think crosses intellectual and emotional is like difficult conversations, like in the workplace. Like some people just can't have them, right? So I need to have a discussion with you that's not going to work out or something like that. And I have not slept like for 3 days before. I'm sweating. I come in, I've ruined 5 days for a 10-minute conversation or performance review. Now this is again where you can upgrade your processor by make it easier. So now instead I sit down, I listen, I read Radical Candor. I listen to Patty McCord's podcast on difficult conversations. I upgrade my ability, capacity, knowledge to do this. And suddenly, I can have the conversation. It's 10 minutes. And I don't have the 3 days before and the 8 hours after. But it's sort of like subtraction by addition. Again, capacity building is not just doing more. It's not about more volume. A lot of it's getting better so we can do it faster and with less energy, and knowing the stuff that we should walk away from and not do. So I always pointed that to an example, because that 10-minute conversation could have been a 10-minute conversation, or it could have been a 4-day agony, for you. And look, we don't just, I mean, some of us you don't come out of the box good at these things. There are processes, there are systems. I interviewed Patty McCord, who's sort of the godmother of these difficult conversations at Netflix. She would encourage her managers to fully record the termination discussion or the layout, with on their cell phone the night before, to do it 7 times, things about how they could get comfortable with things that were difficult and get better at them.
Yeah, it's hard to get better at it when you don't have them in the beginning, and then when you don't learn the strategies to make any of these steps easier. Yeah. So I like that. So I wanted to tell everyone that I'm doing a little giveaway. So I'm going to send out a copy of Bob's book to someone. So in order to enter into the draw, you just need to share this post on your own page and tag 2 people, and also like and follow Jane Hogan Health. So do that. I'm going to do the draw next Friday, August 21st, in a Facebook Live, and I'll send out the book to 1 lucky winner. So I want to get to one thing I always ask is what's one, see if I can put this up on the screen. There we go. What's one action someone could take today to improve their health? So I know you're not a health guy, although you are a health guy. But as I said, so much of your book really did relate to health, I found. So, and you do have a whole section on physical capacity. So I'm sure you've got something to offer here, Bob.
Yeah, I would actually schedule, and this is particularly with people working from home, but schedule breaks in your day. Like, put it in your calendar, whether it's a nap, a 30-minute walk outside. I think we just assume that these things will happen. People can't book my calendar. My calendar is divided amongst the things that I want to do. It's time blocking strategy rather than people can grab everything. So I've got it in there, like when I'm running today, when I'm taking a break. This is open. I'm going to take a nap. I actually think scheduling the breaks from that kid, we need them. And sometimes we're just running too hard. And if you think that magical break time is just going to appear, it's not.
That's really important, especially because so many people are working from home now.
Yeah, it all gets very
all over the place.
Time and space goes away. Yeah.
It's so hard to have structure unless you actually schedule it in. So, little question about your own schedule. So then you do have a very structured schedule.
Yeah. So I think your schedule is your priority. So I use time blocks. So when people reach out to me and say, "Can you chat tomorrow?" The answer is no, unless it falls into that super urgent, important bucket, because my schedule is aligned how I want to spend the time. Like, there's just a certain amount of meetings a day. There's a certain amount of quiet time. There's my exercise, there are my breaks. I don't let other people just fill up my schedule. So those buckets are sort of allocated. And then when those allocations fill, something has to be swapped out. It just can't be added. So I work with my assistant, who also just knows the priorities of those various initiatives. And certainly some emergencies thing will come up, but everyone always wants to speak tomorrow. And one of my mentors, who's a phenomenal leader, said he has an open office policy, but his door is not always open, which means that there's an open door, but you can talk to him. You can interrupt him anytime. I mean, there's real emergencies, and then there's something that you just decided you want to talk to now when someone else is probably in the middle of doing something more important. And sometimes he says if they makes them wait 2 days to have that discussion, they've solved it by then. And if it's, critical and someone's going to die that day, then they can have the discussion. But otherwise, they've solved it, they've thought about it, or it can be 2 days later. So I like things like calendaring and stuff where people just leave their other calendar for people to book. Like, I am not comfortable with those solutions.
Yeah, no, I agree. And do you find working from home that you still need to protect that? Like, or are you working?
I've always worked from home. So that's I've always protected my schedule. I think that what people are going to find out, the great mistake about working from home is actually not that people are off doing stuff and being unaccountable. It's that they have a hard time turning it off, and they need those boundaries. They need their virtual morning commute. They need their wind down. They need to not have the office come into the bedroom at night on the laptop. And we have seen that to be true. That the far more concern is overwork rather than not finding people or knowing what they're doing or have them slacking off.
I've really seen that with my husband, because he worked in an office, but of course with COVID now he's been working from home. And really in the beginning, especially, was working much longer hours, and it's much harder to create those boundaries unless you make it happen. And I have to do that too, because he came home, he was sort of walking in anytime. I have to like, okay, shut the door.
Yeah.
Don't interrupt me now, because when you're in the flow, when you're writing and things like that, I don't want to be interrupted.
Yeah, the pro at home is that you don't get interrupted. The downside is that can make you just, go through lunch and not pay attention and not get dressed. And that's trying to manage like right in the middle on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I love the scheduling, priorities. And I would say for anyone who's got a health issue, your priority is your health and making sure that happens, and not putting yourself last all the time. So, Bob, lastly, where can people get hold of you?
Yeah, best place. Everything is at Robert Glazer, Glazer.com. I can put it in the chat. And there you can sign up for Friday Forward. You can see Elevate, my new book, Friday Forward, that's coming out, podcasts, everything all in one place.
Okay. I'll put all your links. I know you got other links to Instagram, LinkedIn, all those other ones. So
You'll find them all on that same page. So
okay. They're all go one-stop shopping. I like it. Bob, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me today, and also for giving me a copy of your book that I can give away to people.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, really, really, this has been delightful. Thanks so much.
Let's do it again.
Okay, bye.